准备很久的演讲稿终于要来表现了，但为什么常常得到的反馈是不太自然、不够熟练呢？ So let's explore with us in our episode today. Hello, 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 podcast. I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. We want to share with you a little bit of knowledge about a taboo and something that people tell you don't do, which is don't read your presentation. Now, we believe this is mostly true, but there are a few times in which reading a presentation may not get in the way in quite the way that you think. It's not ideal, but there are certain tips and tricks that you can use to segue as you're building your confidence to move from very scripted to non-scripted. And we want to give you a few examples of people who do this well and not so well, and what tips and tricks you can learn from them.
这真的跟每个人的习惯跟个性我觉得也有关系。很多人在做简报之前，尤其是很重要的简报，他希望能够做足准备，所以他想要来把这些 script 全部都写下来，把所有的重要的 information 都先写下来。Which I actually really agree. 如果这件事情这种方式呢，能够让你比较有自信的话， then I think go for it. 但是往往比较可惜的是，当我们把东西都写下来了 right? Typed it up on a Word document, 但是你开始想要，那我来念好了，因为我都准备好了嘛，那我来念稿好了。但是念稿的时候，一定都会给人家一种听起来不太自然，好像你不够熟练 It sounds really robotic. 那到底要怎么办呢？因为这种讲话跟念的时候，其实是听起来是完全不一样的。
I definitely agree that you should lean into whatever your natural tendencies are, as long as you're not using them as a crutch.
Yeah.
Actually, a great example of this is Andrew, who we know as a presidential speechwriter. He used to lead Toastmasters groups, obviously very well versed on being on the stage. He used to write down everything and memorize it. But the reason that he did this is because he always wanted to make sure that his ideas came out, they were clear, they were organized. Then once he did that, he would get to the point where he would flip it up. He would change words. He would change sentences. He would practice 3 times in a row, trying not to say the same thing over and over again, but that he understood the script. Meaning is that having that preparation phase can be greatly to your advantage. But if you just prep and then go in front of a camera or go in front of a stage and start reading, you will lose a lot of the nuance, the emotion behind what you're saying, because you're just literally reading out loud.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit unfortunate, 因为你可能在跟你的听众、你的观众来，我们在做的 small talk， 结果你又要进入你的 presentation， 就突然之间你就是用念的。那对人家来讲，其实我们的耳朵都很厉害的。我们在做 conversation 的时候，你的声音是一种，当你在真正只是在念稿，你的声音又是另外一种。It sounds really obvious when you're talking and when you're reading from the script.
There's a great example of this for those of you who are fans of the TV show Friends, where Ross goes to give a presentation and he's reading off of name cards in front of everyone. And it's so robotic. And it's supposed to be Ross is a paleontologist studying dinosaurs. It's a little bit boring to people, but when he goes full science nerd, the rest of the crew just cannot handle it.
Yeah, I remember Phoebe, 也就是另外一个 character, 她说 Okay, that's it. This is how I'm gonna die today. 所以我们也会来提供让大家听听看，他在念稿的时候，他的声音是怎么样。Honestly, it's actually pretty accurate. That's how people read a script, right?
There are three primary theories concerning sediment flow rate. Each of these theories can be further subcategorized into two
this
distinct...
is it. This is what's going to kill me.
Subcategories. The first of these subcategories...
In that example, you can definitely hear what it feels like just to be reading a script out loud. But there's a few particular reasons why it's especially bad and why Ross is not able to create any kind of emotional feeling or appeal. Compare this to audiobook readers, right? If you've listened to our previous podcasts on books we love, Andrew and I tend to listen to a lot of audiobooks, and a lot of them tend to be business books. The person reading, the narrator, can make or break an audiobook. It's not always the content, but just the tone of voice, the way that they do the sentences, it makes a big difference. But a lot of that comes down to how they break apart sentences.
Yeah. 没错，你会发现啊，其实我们在讲话，如果你要听起来自然，我们在讲话的时候啊，我们的句子其实都不会太长。但是当我们在写稿的时候，通常我们都会写的比较长的句子。The writing and the speaking is just so different. So 当你在念稿，然后你又照着这个句子完完全全的念出来，听起来真的会有的时候不太自然。So I would actually suggest that if we want to sound more natural reading the script, change the sentence to shorter sentences. Make some variation.
A lot of people just rely on conjunctions and, multiple pointed sentences where like blah, 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 and blah, 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 but blah, 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 blah. That's fine when you're reading because I'm getting all the main points, but we usually don't speak in those long terms.
真的。
However, again, back to audiobooks, narrators don't have a choice. They cannot edit the writer. But you'll find is that they pause or they emphasize words a lot to audibly break up a sentence.
Exactly.
Those pauses become very key so that it doesn't feel like a long sentence.
这个时候你的停顿跟你在对字的一个 emphasis， 也就是强调某一个重点字的部分就非常的重要。就算你今天的句子稍微比较的长，但如果你停顿在对的地方，你反而会给大家一个加强的感觉。你知道等一下停顿完那个字可能非常重要，或者是你做一些 emphasis， 你在某一些字你的音节把它拉长，也就是我们所谓的 stress。那这样子也能够让听到的人能够了解到你现在讲的重点是什么。
My favorite example of this also happens to be one of my favorite TED Talks by David Isay of StoryCorps. What makes his talk so incredible is that if you just listen to it, you completely forget that he reads the whole thing from a script. He does such a fantastic job of storytelling. And again, he breaks apart his sentences. He pauses. But literally, if you watch the TED Talk video, he stands at a podium and he reads it the whole time. He's probably the only person who has gotten away with it and still had one of the most watched talks in all of TED.
When I was 22 years old, I was lucky enough to find my calling when I fell into making radio stories. At almost the exact same time, I found out that my dad, who I was very, very close to, was gay. I was taken completely by surprise. We were a very tight-knit family, and I was crushed. At some point in one of our strained conversations, my dad mentioned the Stonewall riots. He told me that one night in 1969, a group of young Black and Latino drag queens fought back against the police at a gay bar in Manhattan called the Stonewall Inn, and how this sparked the modern gay rights movement.
Yeah, 当我看这个 video 的时候，我很强烈的就感受到它的 intonation 第一个有很多样化 right 完全不是那种平平的我们所谓的 monotone。第二个他很会利用这种 pauses 这种停顿的方式，所以你听得到，你甚至可以听得到逗点。You can hear where he would punctuate like period, right? So and or commas. I think that's the fun part about reading with intention with these pauses and stresses, because as if people can actually see your script.
It makes a huge difference in the way that we receive the message. If someone stood up there with his same script and didn't take the time to put those in, it may not be as powerful. And there's a great section where he talks about his relationship with his own father, and it's a very emotionally driven story. And it's very easy to forget that he is reading it from a script, just simply because of the way he carries the story forward.
所以我们今天稍微帮大家总结一下，当你一定要念稿，你要准备稿，那念稿的时候呢，记得你这个句子千万不要每一个都拉得很长，短一点的句子听起来会比较自然，还要多多利用你的语气跟语调 more variation， 不要都 monotone。 And then the third one is 你要常常的使用，知道要怎么样使用这些 pauses， 也就是停顿，还有要知道怎么使用这种强调我们的字，把这个音节拉长。
We hope that these guidelines help you make that transition from the script reading to more natural sounding presentations without having to give up that sense of security. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.